Hey, in this video I'm going to explain how to work with Microthemer's folders. So as you're clicking around on things on your site, Microthemer always will add a selector to a specific folder. The default folder is always the general folder here, but you can change this when you're creating a selector like this, or you can drag your selectors around between different folders later to get things organized. So if you've only got one column, the folders will display over the top of your styles, but you can customize the view, so you might want to have, say, two columns in the left sidebar, and then the folders will always show. You just need to make sure that the dock folders left option is enabled. And you can organize folders just like you can drag selectors around like this. You can also move your folders around like so. And the order that your folders and the selectors within your folders are arranged will determine how the CSS, the order that the CSS is written to the style sheet. So if I just go to the view generated CSS, here we can see, so we've got the basic list item selector first, and then we've got the CSS for the heading. So if we were to just reverse that and move the heading up to the top and then check that again, you can see you've got a heading here. And this has implications for the CSS cascade, which basically, in short, you can use the order of your selectors to determine which selectors can override other selectors. And that's a topic I'll go into in more detail in another video. So let's have a look now at all of the options we've got for the folders. So starting at the top here, we've got an option to expand or collapse all of the folders. We've got an option to search the folders. Actually, let me just collapse this one now just to give you an example. So if I say remember that I have set a style for 6 pixels padding top, I can type in 6 pixels here, and then I can quickly jump to the selector here, and it even opens the menu so that we can make a quick change. And then to clear our search result filter, we just use this, and then we've got all of the folders again. And to add a new folder, we just use this option here, my new folder, and then click add. For each folder, we've got a set of options. So on the general folder, we could rename it to general 2, update that, or we've got an option for disabling the folder. So if I click this, you can see that the padding setting that we just saw has been removed, because basically it's disabled all of the selectors inside this folder. So if I undisable this, you can see from the purple shading here that the padding is back. There's an option to clear it. I'll tell you what, I'll show you this option first to duplicate. So this, as you'd expect, it just creates a complete copy of the folder. That's useful sometimes if you just want to create a backup. So I've duplicated this, and then maybe I'd disable it, and then I could use this copy to, say, go down a different design path, try out some styles, and if I decide it was the wrong way to go, then I can just delete this folder and go back to how things were. So that's why this can come in quite handy. Oh yeah, and so clearing it, I'll just undisable this. I'll tell you what, I'll disable this folder. In fact, I'll delete this folder because it'll just get confusing otherwise. So I'll delete that. And then if you see, if I click this clear option, it will just get rid of, it will give me a prompt, say, sure you want to clear all the styles. And what that does is it just deletes the padding settings from the selectors, but it doesn't delete the selectors themselves. And then delete section, as you saw I just did with the copied folder, that just would delete it. And here there's also some options for adding a custom selector. So I could say, when you're wanting to set global variables, what you would do is create give it some kind of label, and then the convention for that is :root. It's the same as writing HTML, by the way. It's just a convention with CSS variables. So I could add that. And then what I would do is go to, say, here and start entering my CSS variables there. You could also visually click on the page and find the HTML element by using the breadcrumbs, but sometimes it's just, when you know a selector that you want to use, sometimes it's easier to use this option here to just add one manually. And this option here is the same. So say I wanted a paragraph, p.test. If I had this synced, and basically what the label is always going to be the same as the code. They're completely synced, because sometimes the selector code itself is just as useful as a description that you would manually write yourself. Okay, so that's the folder adding options. For each selector, we also have a set of options, so we can quickly change the label or the code. We've got the same set of options. This just does the same as what I showed you with the folder, except at the selector level. And we've also got an option here to create a variation. So maybe this isn't the best example. If I go to, say, my heading, what this selector does is targets this heading, but if I wanted to target it in the hover state, I could choose this option here and then click Save, because that creates a draft first. So I click Save, and then I've got a hover selector. It's a selector which will, when the styles are applied, they will only take effect when the user is hovering their mouse over the element, if I was to apply some styles here. And because I had the sync option enabled, it actually added the code because it remembered that I wanted that preference. But I'm just going to go ahead and delete the selector now. Okay, so let's see if there's any more options here. No, that's okay. So that's all of the selector editing options. If you and over here, this option highlight selector basically just shows us, it just updates the highlighting on the page so we can see what the selector targets before we navigate to it, so we can just have a quick overview. And another thing about these editing options is if you want to do some quick edits, like say delete a number of selectors or disable them, if you just expand the amount of space available, then you'll see these little shortcut icons here, so that can be handy. Okay, so let's finish by just now talking about these top options up here. So this is basically just the options for the current folder item you're on. So you can navigate between the items using these arrows, and the a way to jump to see the current folder here, if you didn't have this open, would be to click on this option here, and then the selector label, you can just if you want to just edit the label quickly, you can click on this. So I could just call this heading 4 link, and just click off anywhere to save it. This option here is useful once you've created a selector. Sometimes you don't want this highlighting to just stay in place because it can be a bit distracting from when you're trying to add styles. So this is just a really easy way to turn it on and off. And then this option here is for changing the selector. So basically, the reason it's a mouse icon with a square around it is to indicate that once you've clicked it, by clicking on something else, you will be updating that selector. So I'll be, I don't know, let's say if I wanted to target this heading instead, and I update that, then this selector, if we had any styles applied, it's empty at the moment, if we had any styles applied to this one, they would then now be applying to this one. And this option here is just a shortcut for what I showed you here, where you've got an option to edit the selector, but for the current one. So if you want to quickly create a hover selector, that's when you'll often probably use these dots here, just to create a hover selector. And that's just, it's just a shortcut really for targeting the same element again and enabling the hover selector, which I think I've showed you before in another video, but I can show you again. So if we say I was to click on this and choose additional selector, I could choose hover and then go ahead and save that and maybe give it another name. So it just allows you to create a hover selector in less steps by using this option here, or a focus. And I'll add more options to this, by the way, in time. Okay. Yeah, I think that covers everything for the folders. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching.